The reading I'd like to share with you is from Naomi, Shihab 9. You may have heard it before, but it's always, in my view, worth listening to. This is called Gate A4. Wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal after learning my flight had been delayed 4 hours, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of Gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate, so I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing. "Help," said the flight agent. "Talk to her. What is her problem?" We told her the flight was going to be late, and she did this. I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke haltingly, Habibi. The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely and she needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment the next day. I said, "No, we're fine. You'll get there, just later. Who's picking you up? Let's call him." We called her son. I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane and ride next to her. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons, just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took up 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then, telling of her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, from her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we were all covered with the same powdered sugar. And smiling, there is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free apple juice from huge coolers, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving it, and they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country tradition. Always carry a plant. Always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones, and I thought, this is the world I want to live in. The shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. So, beloveds, I know we're running late, so I'm going to cut down the 50-minute sermon. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding about cutting it down, but it was never 50 minutes. That would kill me. That would take me a month to write. So I'm going to try to be more circumspect, because I pray anyway that the message of this service is pretty clear at this point. So I'm going to start by telling you a story from my own life. This is a story from the early 1980s. And I was living in New Haven, and I moved into a commune. And I think there were 5 or 6 of us. There were a few people who sort of moved in and out, and communes were, still kind of popular in those days. And so in this commune, the thing that joined all of us together, we weren't all the same people by any means, but all of us carried what today we would call a marginalized identity. We were either people of color, most of us were Latinx, or we were LGBT, or both. And so, and we all had, this was the other thing that pulled us together, we all had a long history of being really involved in leftist politics since our early teens, or even earlier, because we had grown up in Puerto Rico, or Bolivia, or Chile, or places where human rights and the devastation of extractive capitalism have been a reality for many decades. And so the commune was called Left of Lavender. You can probably understand why. If you don't, you can ask me afterwards. And we did, we were all employed, we all worked full-time, or we were doctoral students writing dissertations and working part-time. And we did a lot of social justice work. We worked on many of the issues that Larry talked about. We worked on women's rights. We worked on environmental issues, but primarily because of our lived experiences, we were really concerned with bringing light, particularly to the way the government in this country was supporting and actively abetting flat-out killer regimes. So Anastasio Somoza was still in power, et cetera, et cetera. And we planned events and concerts, and we had a band coming from Nicaragua for one event, and again, Somoza was still in power, and a band from Puerto Rico. We had a big event planned, and this will give you an idea of how things were. We were planning to do it outside. All the women said, "What if it rains?" And all the men said, "It won't rain." What if it rains? It's not going to rain. Do I need to tell you what happened? It was a very soggy, but pretty, very successful event. The thing, and the reason I wanted to tell you that story is because the commitment was fierce. And yes, we were all younger and we didn't need as much sleep as we need now. But the thing about doing the work together was that it was hand in hand with not only building loving relationships between us and really sharing ourselves with one another. It was filled with music and singing and food. Like, I can't conceive of having any kind of meeting without snacks, which every congregation I've ever been in has looked at me like, what's the matter with you? But that's another story. So there was this sense that this endeavor, this life-saving endeavor that we hoped and did not necessarily believe, we knew it had been generations, and the chances of it miraculously working out was not gonna happen overnight. But we also knew that at the core of it was love and celebration. We sang all the old protest songs from Latin America, and it was a beautiful meld. Because the thing is, when you're involved in social justice work, and I know you know this, but it's important to repeat it. It can be soul crushing. And if the motivation is anger, which is incredibly useful, don't hear me say that I don't, that anger is not part of this life. But maintaining anger and sustaining that is hard. Weaving in with one another the spiritual support, the emotional support. Making time for grieving and really acknowledging when the terrible stuff happens, because it does. Because we lost Roe v. Wade, folks. In my generation, we didn't have it yet, so many of us remember. So when the devastating things happen, to be with one another and to have that foundation is really important. And in the 60s and in the 70s, there was a lot of anger and a lot of and there needed to be. But in the circles in which this work that I'm describing happened, there was also a tremendous amount of companionship and adult beverages and other substances. I won't describe because, again, the internet. I say this to say to you that the Side with Love organizers at our association, over the last several years, because I've watched it happen, have evolved into this perspective. Not only today are they doing organizing work that is grounded in community organizing, that is grounded in building relationships, that is grounded in the leadership of those who are actually impacted by injustice, as opposed to going in and saying, oh, well, I know what's best for you all, we're going to impose it on you. Not only is it grounded in all of that, but it is also grounded in nourishing one another. So when you take a break because you're exhausted and soul weary, I will cover for you. I will pick up the slack. I will support your need to rest. And you will support mine. Because we will be in this for many generations. The Bible talks about 7th generation thinking. We will be in, it took 50 years. I talk about where we wait. It took 50 years to bring it down. It may well take another 50 or more to bring it back. It may take 50 years for my son to have the right to use the bathroom that he needs without being persecuted or having stuff thrown at him, or being refused service because we don't serve people like you. I don't need to go into all of those examples, but you know what they are. If you had a chance to look at yesterday's Friday Flash, we had the link, right, for Side with Love in the video. I urge you, if you haven't, to go back and just check it out. Because I was going to tell you lots of cool stories. Well, I will tell you the story of the rototiller if there's time, but maybe not. I encourage this congregation to explore the Side with Love campaign, particularly in this election year. It is not hyperbole to say this may well be not only the most consequential election year of our lifetimes, it may be the most consequential election year for this country. Yeah. So, Side with Love and You, the vote, offers opportunities for us as a community to meet thousands of other UUs across the country, build relationships, celebrate together, and grieve together. We don't know if we're going to be dancing the Roomba in November or hiding our heads under our pillows, or both. The idea is the idea of our opening song, Love Reaches Out. Throughout our history, our faith has reached out. Reached out, because if you hoard your love, it's not love. The good news of Unitarian Universalism is in our words, is in our hearts, is in our prayers, and is in the way we behave. You matter. You are loved. You are a child of the infinite universe. You are held. You are enough right now. You don't need to earn heaven. Heaven is here for us to make it. You heard Dr. King imitate one of our Unitarian ministers, Theodore Parker, of the mid-19th century, when Dr. King said, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Yes.
Well, Congresswoman, I think her name is Sherelle Tyler, I can't remember, I'm going to say that and I'll have to correct myself. She says, yeah, the arc of the universe bends towards justice, but we gotta bend it. Amen. Amen. So, beloveds, let's do this together. Amen. Ashe. And blessed be. And ask me about the rototiller.